Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ultrasound Unplugged Live. My name is Christopher Merkel. I am the co-owner of Ultrasound-Services and CEO of Franchising Us. Today, I wanted to get into billing. Today, we're going to talk about billing, the biggest challenges in diagnostic imaging, billing ultrasounds, or billing for ultrasound exams. We do a lot of that here, obviously. We're going to kind of go through what some of the challenges are and how we actually address some of those challenges. If you work in ultrasound billing or you practice in operations, you already know how fast mistakes can turn into denials, delays, or missing revenue, which is probably an understatement. So let's break down what really causes these issues, and more importantly, how to fix them. If you're in ultrasound, you are familiar with CPT codes, probably diagnosis codes, modifiers. So those are the things that tend to get us in trouble quickly. Ultrasound billing is uniquely challenging. That's probably an understatement. Ultrasound varies widely by application, and it creates more scrutiny from payers. And I think this is one of the biggest issues: is the payers highly scrutinize what we do, so we have to be prepared. Documentation has to be extremely precise, especially when it comes to medical necessity. That's probably an understatement. Payers challenge rules quietly, and CPT codes and ICD-10 guidelines evolve every year. So you're talking about something that is constantly changing, and unfortunately, that's not going to change. In fact, it could get worse, if anything. And even the best EMRs, EHRs, don't receive complete EDI data as you would expect. We pay a lot as providers for these EMR EHRs, and sometimes there's a disconnect from data. And so once that disconnect happens, you're left guessing, where's the information? You'll find that some of the information you need never crosses over from the payer into the system you're using. And this happens frequently. It seems as though everything looks fine, but the denial shows up with a reason that you never actually anticipated. Or you never saw in your feed in your EMR EHR. So you log into the payer website, and suddenly there's a completely different rule for a new medical necessity requirement that your system never received. Pardon me. I think this is one of the things that we in the medical field with EMR EHRs, EDIs, we get frustrated with, because we expect that these systems are going to have the data that we need sent to them, but the payer may not send that data for that day, and there could be a multitude of reasons. It could be there's a holiday and systems didn't get updated. There could be a crash. Change Healthcare is an example of that. Those crashes can cause problems, and you need to be prepared for those problems. The EDI versus portal mismatch is one of the biggest hidden causes of preventable denials. Those mismatches tend to, as it says, alludes to, cause denials. And without tight coordination between sonographer and billing, a lot of these issues can slip through the cracks, which is probably an understatement as well. The mismatch between the portal and the EDI it happens every so often. It's not all the time, but I think one of the issues that becomes a problem is, was something denied? Was it approved? Did we receive payment? Those mismatches cause a lot of variances for those issues or those questions. And so it causes operational inefficiencies for us. And so that's what you want to be prepared for. So now we're going to talk about some of the top billing challenges in ultrasound. I would pose this question to the audience, to whomever is watching. What billing issues are you seeing for ultrasound exams? Are you billing ultrasound exams? And if so, what issues are you having? I'll give an example. And the beginning of October, one of the ICD-10s had changed. And because of that change, one of the payers was no longer receiving or accepting claims with that ICD-10 on it. You had to use a sub ICD-10 code of the old code. So when they phased it out, it caused billing issues for us from a billing perspective, which meant we were sending claims with a code, an ICD-10 code that wasn't actually viable in their system, but we were trying to use the new code, and even still, the new code wasn't coming across. And so that's recently one of the biggest issues that we've had. And I think we will continue to see things like that happen because of the complexity with ICD-10s and CPTs changing throughout the year. I don't expect that that's going to go away, but you at least need to know how to be prepared for it. So let's dive into talking about some of the common issues. Number one is documentation, missing measurements, vague clinical indications, reports that don't fully support whether the exam was complete or limited. This is probably the number one issue for billing challenges. And we don't necessarily see a lot of it here. We will submit claims, and sometimes they will deny a portion of that claim, and then we'll have to go back and resubmit supporting documentation. There's a whole nother process for that. We're not going to get into that now, but that documentation issue is probably one of the biggest challenges. And it's if you have protocols in place for that, you can quickly take care of those issues. The next is CPT and modifier confusion. We don't see a lot of that on our side, limited versus complete, professional versus global. This is one of those issues. However, we don't see that as one of the biggest issues. A lot of these things we bill globally. If your payer doesn't know that you bill global, then you may need to have a contractual conversation with that payer, and figure out what their billing practices are. But that can be one of the big issues. Sometimes exams will get denied. A second and third CPT code will get denied because you didn't add the appropriate modifier to it, whether it be modified by 59 or a modifier 50 or a modifier 51. Those are issues or challenges that some providers face if they don't know how to bill ultrasounds. The next one is number three, which seems to me like it should probably be number two, payer variability issues. And this is a big problem because what one payer says how to bill a claim may not be the exact same way another payer says you have to bill a claim. And this could apply to pre-authorizations. It could apply to coverage rules for some of the same CPT codes. And many payer rules never show up in the EDI at all. So you're sometimes working blindly for some of these codes, but if you establish, if you're familiar with that, you can work around it. The next issue that we see a lot of, ICD-10 medical necessity problems, unspecified pain codes, missing anatomical detail. We don't see a lot of those here, unless we maybe submit like a venous ultrasound or an arterial ultrasound with an outdated code, an outdated ICD-10 code that payer no longer takes. But it can become an issue. So next one is denials and appeals. Denials and appeals are time consuming, and they tend to weight heavily on your day-to-day. And so you want to try to avoid denials and appeals as much as you can. Get those submitted, those claims submitted, clean claims. That way you can avoid that. Oftentimes you can set templates to deal with those, and you can set parameters for that so it never becomes a problem. But even still, a payer could change their mind. The complexity of the payer, the issues with their updating, how they accept certain codes or certain CPTs can change, and you'll just have to deal with it on the fly. Every payer wants something different when you submit for an appeal, so you have to be familiar with the appeals process, how to submit documentation for an appeal. A lot of the times, you'll have to interact with their website, not necessarily your EMR EHR, but their payer website. Blue Cross has a VLT, Cigna has their own website, Aetna uses a VLT. So those, you'll have to familiarize yourself with those websites and how to deal with those appeals. Now, Let's go ahead and jump into some solutions that work. These billing challenges obviously have solutions, and a lot of the times these solutions are pretty easy and uh, can be executed prior to actually billing. And so you want to make sure you are familiar with these solutions and make sure you execute these beforehand so you don't run into a bunch of appeals or run into a bunch of denials, which could obviously cause a lot of headache and slow down a lot of your profit. Um, uh, so if you could just, if you want to ask a couple of questions, I want to ask a question here. What ultrasound billing solutions have worked for you or didn't? Let me know in the comments, or if you want to reply to this post, that's great. I'd love to hear, what worked and what didn't work. These are solutions for, obviously for billing just ultrasound. I'm not familiar with the other modalities, but if you'd like to chime in with that, that would be great as well. I'm just going to give you some simple solutions, repeatable processes that could hopefully help you cut down on your denials and appeals. So the first thing you can do is standardize your documentation templates. This would obviously help, especially from a billing perspective on the front end. Um, Selecting billing profiles for specific appointments allows you to, within your EMR EHR, have those codes are and those CPTs and ICD-10s already dropped into the appointment. So when you go to bill it, you have common codes, ICD and CPTs, that are already ready to be billed. So you just switch to the billing status to bill rather than not being billed. And so, those templates are very easy to create. Generally, there's places in your EMR EHR that you can do that. And what happens when a patient goes to schedule, or your reception goes to schedule an appointment for a patient? Once they select that appointment, those templates are already built into that appointment with those CPT codes and those ICD-10 codes. Um, so you don't have to worry about, okay, well, did they pick the right information from the beginning, from the get-go? And so that's a really quick, easy way to solve, a lot of that issue from appeals and denials. The next one, and I think this one is really good. Our business manager, Destiny, she does a great job of creating cheat sheets for CPT codes and modifiers. We should have, and you should have, cheat sheets for CPT codes and modifiers. This will allow you and your staff to gauge whether or not the appropriate CPT codes with their modifiers are being used. And if there's been changes, you'd be able to note that as well. So cheat sheets are very handy. They can be passed around to everybody that handles billing or works on billing or handles appeals and works on appeals. That is a good outlet or a good source to go to for remedying those problems. Hmm. Next one is we're going to talk about is maintain a payer rules library, including section for EDI versus portal mismatches. What does this mean? It means what's going on with your EDI outcome. Once they do a adjudication of the claim, the payer will send back an EDI or ERA, and that ERA will match up to your EMR EHR in the system, and then you can see, did they match or did they mismatch? And if there's a mismatch, you can go back and check and see, what rule was used. Does it need to be altered or changed? And what was the reason for the mismatch? Keeping that library or keeping that cheat sheet on hand can help to eliminate or alleviate some of those appeals and denials that you get. Next one we're going to talk about is solution number 4. Check payer portals directly for your highest denial payers. Create ICD-10 crosswalks for the most common ultrasound indications. So what this is talking about is being familiar with your payer portal and seeing what ICD-10 codes are being used in order to I guess get not be involved in a denial or an appeal. They will oftentimes tell you which codes, which ICD-10s won't work with what, and so You want to make sure you're doing the research, especially per payer, not just for, because these don't apply to what denial or what highest denial payer would not be for one will be for the other. So it's kind of a little bit confusing. They will publish sometimes what you can and can't do, and you want to make sure you know what they can and can't do when you go to bill for these. Um, Number five, run weekly denial reviews to spot patterns before they become expensive. And that's probably an understatement. Um, these exams, if you do get a denial, you'll get it fairly quickly. It will be electronic, and it will typically tell you what the reason for the denial was. Um, if it needed more documentation, they will tell you need more documentation for medical necessity. You would need to make sure that you get that documentation to that payer, either via mail, via website submission, via fax, whatever the means is to get it to them. You need to get it to them so you can stop the bleeding on the revenue and not being received, because these, as it says, can pile up. Number six, build an appeals template for the highest volume payer. I think if you don't know which one if you don't know, you need to know which is your highest volume payer. For us, it would be Blue Cross Blue Shield. We're starting to see more Aetna. We're starting to see more Cigna. We've had Cigna for some time, but Aetna's our newest. But right now, Blue Cross is our highest volume payer, and so we have templates and we know the process very well by which we can appeal. Some of them change based on how it's managed, and so if you don't get an appeal from every one of them, you may not know, what template you need until you actually get a denial from them, and then you need to go seek out how to appeal that. So you just add that to your library, as it said in number three, so you'll know next time what for that highest volume payer, what to do. Um, these are not huge workflow overhauls. Obviously, these are small habits that stabilize revenue and speed up reimbursement. I think a lot of the times it's just digging into what's necessary, what information you have or don't have, finding it and organizing it. Um, Keeping it organized is very important. You want to know that you can address your denials and appeals very quickly. A lot of these come with timeframes at which they have to be um, appealed. So, from that perspective, you want to make sure you stay on top of them. You also want to make sure you're consistently following up with these appeals, keeping a log or a record of these appeals, and when they actually go through the process and what the actual outcome is of that process. And so, a lot of the times we will have a billing meeting on a monthly basis to discuss things like this. Billing is a very difficult and complex thing for various payers. If you have various payers, you understand what it means to stay on top of billing. Look for those rejections. Look for those denials. Address those denials as quickly as possible. If there are anything that needs to be appealed, submitting that documentation fairly quickly so you can stay within the guidelines for timeframes to appeal. Also, I think a lot of the times people will forget one of the biggest pieces or caveats to the whole claims process, and that is getting the patient involved. I think a lot of the times providers will tend to just be aggressive about, denials and not getting paid, and so rather than steamrolling a patient and saying, hey, you need to pay me, you need to pay me, you need to pay me. We try to reach out to them, let them know that we're having challenges with the payer, let them know what they can do to help us with that payer to hopefully expedite that process for the denial or the appeal. A lot of the times, getting them involved will help. It also allows us as the provider to get them on our side and keep them on our side. walk them through that appeals process, walk them through that denial process, let them know that you're working to get this corrected for them so they don't have to get a bill in the mail. A lot of the times, people just want to throw bills to people, to patients, and just be like, give me the money," and send them a bunch of letters. I think, having our business manager or our assistant business manager reach out and make a call and say, "Hey, we need your help on this," and let them know what we're trying to do, and hopefully they can help expedite, the denial or appeals process. And a lot of the times this works, believe it or not. Being courteous to the patient and not just being aggressive collections has served us very well for the past 12 and a half years. And so, in the grand scheme, we want to be cognizant of the patient, cognizant of the insurance company, and try to collaborate between all of them and us to make sure that we can get paid, with it being a positive outcome. And so, there's a lot of things that you can do. Obviously, as we stated, you want to stay on top of billing. You certainly don't want it to get out of control, especially the denials. I know at the beginning of October, when they changed that code, it slowed our high volume payer down by about a week, simply because they hadn't actually communicated on the back end with our clearinghouse that new ICD-10 code was going to be coming across different, and they were going to accept it different. And so it's a lot of involvement on the back end from the clearinghouse. And so you really have to pay attention and have to be prepared to have difficult conversations and possibly change things quickly. Another thing that I'd like to add to this, the payer websites, a lot of them, Aetna is pretty straightforward. It's in Availty. Blue Cross is in Availty. Those allow you to upload documents and appeal for those during on that platform. And so you kind of have to learn not just your EMR, EHR, but you have to learn how those function. So dealing with appeals on those platforms is something that you're going to have to get used to. And so again, you want to create a rules library. You want to standardize documentation or templates. You want to make sure that's across the board, from your billing profile setup in your EMR, EHR, your CPT code and modifier cheat sheet, your payer rules library for EDI versus portal mismatches. If you see any mismatches come across, you definitely want to jump on those, get that corrected quickly, or make the changes necessary, and update all those locations that have that information in it. Check payer portals directly for the highest denial payers. Create crosswalks for those most common ultrasound indications. Those things you want to stay on top of as well. Run weekly denial reviews. So just a recap, to spot patterns before they become expensive. That's an understatement. Again, build an appeal template for your highest volume payers. I think this is, I know right now we're having to deal with Meritain. Meritain is part of Aetna, and Meritain, while we are approved provider with Aetna and Meritain is still loading our claims as out of network. And so we had to send them an LOI and get them to do some back end work in order for them to start recognizing those claims appropriately. And so again, you really have to stay on top of it. So if you have any questions about any billing issues you're having, or you want to just have a chat about it, you're welcome to message me here after this. There is a QR code at the top corner of your screen. Scan it. It will lead you to our link tree, which allows you to interact, download documents, visit our website, ask questions, so on and so forth. It was a pleasure talking to you all today. If you have any questions, again, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to try to help out as best I can. Bear with me just a second. I'd like to thank you all for joining Ultrasound Unplugged Live. We will be doing this again next week. Probably Destiny will be joining me then as well. Ultrasound billing will always be complex, y'all. It's not going to get any easier, but the cleaner documentation, the accurate coding, and the smarter workflows around payer websites and EDI gaps, you can dramatically reduce denials and protect your cash flow. You want to remain open. You want to continue to function. Thank you for your time today, and have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. Again, Christopher Merkel, co-owner of Ultrasound Services, CEO of Franchising Us. Scan the QR code if you want to dig in and get a little more information, or you can just message me on LinkedIn here. Y'all have a wonderful weekend.